My mom and brother spent years bullying, mocking, and emotionally abusing me whenever my dad wasn't around. I finally had enough, secretly recorded their cruel behavior on my phone, and sent the video to my dad. He was devastated, immediately filed for divorce. And now my so-called family tells me I should have never been born and blame me for tearing them apart. When the door shut behind my dad, I knew I had exactly 3 minutes until hell began. I had already propped my phone on the bookshelf, wedged behind a biology textbook. My hands were shaking. I had never recorded a video before. Not like this, not as evidence. But this time had to be different. Not because I felt brave, because I simply couldn't go on like this anymore. While my dad was home, everything in the house looked picture perfect. My mom cooked decent meals. My brother Zach even took out the trash sometimes, and I got hugged like I was part of some cute family ad. But the second dad left for a business trip, it was like I disappeared. Or worse, I became a punching bag no one even pretended to care about. My name is May. I'm 16. I grew up in a home where love was always reserved for one child, my older brother Zach. His trophies were framed, his school projects got laminated, his jokes were met with applause. I was just around. No spotlight, no praise, no real place. When I was 11, I tried to become the favorite. I copied Zach, joined the same clubs, read the same books, even mimicked his jokes. It only irritated her. She looked at me like I was a bad parody. That's when I learned. Trying harder doesn't equal love. After that, I learned the rules. Be invisible. Don't talk back. Baggy clothes, old hoodies. Stay out of the way. Stay quiet, stay small. Silence became my shield. Then one day, I found swimming. Totally random. I joined the team just to escape the noise. The water didn't ask for perfection. It held me, strengthened me. My body changed, and for the first time, I felt like I was good at something. Like I was enough. My mom didn't like that. At all. She used to have an arsenal of comments about my body, my posture, my everything. But now, she was losing ammo. I was growing, gaining confidence. And it pissed her off. So she shifted tactics. She made me her maid. Cleaning, cooking, laundry, groceries. My name was on every chore list. Zach? Too tired. School is hard, he said. He needs rest, she said. Me? I just needed to help. Dad was rarely home. His job kept him out of town most of the time. When he was back, everything looked fine. But when he left again, I went back to being no one. I thought I could handle it. But a couple of weeks ago, something snapped. I got a C on an English paper because I spent the night before doing 4 loads of laundry. I was still writing my essay at the kitchen table in a cloud of steam from boiling water, half asleep. When I told Mom about the grade, she barely looked up. Maybe if you tried harder, you wouldn't need excuses, she said. Zach manages just fine. That was it. The turning point. I realized this wasn't a tough time. It was a system. A toxic, deeply rooted cycle. And it wasn't going to stop unless I made it stop. So, camera, recording, a plan. I knew they'd come in. Knew they'd yell, demand, belittle. I just didn't know how long I'd be able to keep my cool. The silence before the storm lasted less than a minute. May, Mom shouted. Chores won't do themselves. Footsteps, voices. The doorknob turned. I took a deep breath. My heart was pounding. The room felt hot, like it always does before a thunderstorm. They stepped in. Orders, accusations. Sharp words, no pleas, no reason. I stood still. I nodded. I let them talk. Every word was caught on camera. But inside I was burning. Not with fear, with resolve. That day will never blur. Because that was the day I hit record. And for the first time, I began to speak, without saying a word. When Mom slammed the door behind her, I felt my whole body go numb. My fingers trembled, my head buzzed. I thought I might collapse. But I didn't. I stopped the recording, checked the file, and sent it to Dad. Along with the video, I wrote a message. Long, detailed, no excuses. I told him everything. How Mom had been tearing me down for years. How she humiliated me when he was away. How Zach laughed when I cried. How I cooked and cleaned for everyone while eating cold oatmeal in a corner. How they convinced me I was a burden, a mistake, an accident that had no right to take up space. I typed as tears dripped onto the screen. But I wasn't crying from fear. These were tears of release. I didn't expect a quick reply. I figured he was already on his flight. But about 20 minutes later, he texted me. Lock your door, I'm coming. I sat on my bed, phone in my hand, feeling fear slowly uncoil from inside me. Not completely, but just enough. About 40 minutes later, I heard a car pull up. Then the front door opened. Voices. Calm at first. Then louder, then shouting. Dad wasn't holding back. He was demanding answers. He knew. He knew everything. I couldn't make out the words, but I didn't need to. The tone said it all. This wasn't a discussion. It was a collapse. A landslide that couldn't be stopped. I didn't leave my room. Not when Mom yelled back. Not when their bedroom door slammed. Not when the house filled with a strange, heavy silence. About an hour later, I heard someone packing. Zippers, hangers, Dad's footsteps, sharp, angry. Mom's, soft, like she was trying to disappear. Then his voice. Zach, get your stuff. You're leaving with her. And that was it. No explanations, no scene. Zach didn't even argue. He walked past my room without looking at me. A few minutes later, they were gone. The door closed, and suddenly the house felt too quiet, almost unreal. Dad didn't come into my room. I didn't go to him either. We were both hollowed out. I just sat there, not with my phone, not reading. Just sat and stared at the wall, feeling like the world had finally cracked open, and maybe for the better. The next morning, he came in. He looked exhausted. He was holding a cup of tea. He told me he was filing for divorce, that Mom wasn't coming back, that it was just the two of us now. He apologized for not seeing, for not understanding, for everything I had to endure in silence. I nodded, but something clenched inside me. I wanted to say, it's okay, but I couldn't. He left, and I was alone again. I didn't know whether to be happy or scared. Everything had collapsed, but in exactly the way I had hoped. And still, I felt like a traitor. Like I broke the family. Like I hurt him. Like I pushed my brother out. Like I was too much. I thought that with Mom gone, things would get easier. But the guilt had sunk in deeper than I expected. I started catching myself listening for her footsteps, waiting for her to barge in, yell, grab my wrist. Even though she wasn't there. She was gone. Really gone. The first few days, we barely spoke. He worked in his office. I ate in the kitchen, he ate in the living room. We saw each other in the mornings. I smiled then, so he wouldn't see how heavy I felt. And he smiled back, maybe for the same reason. I didn't know how to start a real conversation with him. I didn't even know what I was allowed to feel. Relief? Fear? Peace? It was all tangled together. But there was one thing I knew for sure. I wasn't going to break again. A few days after they left, I was home alone for the first time. Dad had gone out for groceries and left a note with some cash on the kitchen table. I stood in the hallway, keys in hand, catching myself waiting, expecting a voice behind me asking where I thought I was going. But no one came. No one stopped me. No one breathed down my neck. And somehow that was more terrifying than if someone had. I started noticing strange things. If there was dust on the floor, I'd mop it up immediately, even though Dad never asked me to. If a plate was out of place, I had to fix it. Not because it needed to be done, but because something in me was screaming, prevent the explosion. My brain was still operating under the old rules made by people who were no longer here. Music didn't help. Sometimes I'd blast it just to fill the space, then turn it off minutes later because it was too much. I couldn't stand the silence, but I couldn't handle the noise either. The house felt hollow. Even my room felt unfamiliar. Without their voices, their footsteps, their demands, the space lost its shape. Dad was trying. He'd invite me to eat together, ask how swimming was going, put on a movie. We didn't talk much, but the silence between us felt okay. He didn't judge. He didn't pressure. He just was. And that was enough. But when I was alone, the guilt crept in. I felt like the one who broke everything. I sent the video. I exposed them. I caused the fallout. Logically, I knew that wasn't true. But their voices, planted deep over the years, kept whispering otherwise. You ruined it all. I went back to the pool more often. Swimming helped. In the water, there were no lists, no shouting, no watchful eyes. Just movement, breath, muscle. I was getting stronger physically, but inside, I was unraveling. One day after practice, I sat on a bench in the locker room and started crying. Not loud, not dramatic. Just quietly, into a towel, as if I was grieving something I couldn't name. That night, I finally spoke to my dad. He was at the kitchen table, scribbling in a notebook. I walked in and stood there for a second before saying, I need help, real help. He looked up and nodded almost immediately. He didn't ask questions, didn't act surprised. Just said, "I'll find someone. Do you want it to be just you or both of us?" I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure yet. He didn't push. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept spinning like laundry in a machine. Not about the past. It had already happened. But about what came next. How do you live in a house where no one is expecting you to be useful all the time? Where no one corrects you mid-sentence? Where you can just exist. Still, I caught myself trying to be easy to live with. Thinking about how Dad must be feeling, that maybe I should check in on him more. Even though he was probably sitting in his room thinking the same thing about me. The next morning, he told me he booked my first session. In 2 days. I thanked him and went to my room. Not to hide. Just to rest. No panic. No dread that I'd forgotten something. And that already felt strange. The day before my first therapy session, I finally asked Dad the question that had been eating at me for weeks. He was in the garage fiddling with tools. Sunlight was pouring in through a crack in the door, but the warmth made me feel strangely cold inside. "When you yelled at Mom that day," I began, "you said you knew why she treated me the way she did. What did you mean?" He put the screwdriver down, wiped his hands slowly, and went still. There was no anger on his face, just exhaustion. The kind that builds up over years. "Do you really want to know?" he asked quietly. I nodded. He sat down on an old folding chair, paused for a moment, and then began to speak. His voice was calm, but heavy with something bitter, like even he hadn't made full peace with what he was about to say. It turned out that after Zach was born, Mom didn't want more kids. They argued about it, but he didn't push her. He told her he'd love to have another child, and a few months later, she got pregnant. He thought she'd come around, but he realized later that she only kept the baby. For him. For him. Not for herself. Not for us. The birth was rough. There were complications. Her recovery took a long time. After that, he said, she started to drift. She told him she felt no connection with the baby. He thought it was postpartum depression. Thought it would pass. But years went by, and nothing changed. I listened, and piece by piece, everything started to make sense. I hadn't imagined it. I wasn't overreacting. It had started from the very beginning. He looked at me and said, "I didn't think she'd be like this. I honestly didn't know." We went quiet. Then he stood up, came over, and hugged me. No words, no apologies. Just that. And I needed it more than I realized. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I didn't cry. I wasn't angry. I just felt lighter. Not happy, but clear. The guilt I'd been carrying started to crack. I wasn't a mistake. I wasn't unwanted. I just came into the world at the wrong time, for the wrong person. But that didn't make me wrong. When I went to my first therapy session, I was nervous. We started with the basics. The therapist, a woman in her 40s, listened patiently without interrupting. I shared some of my story, not all of it, but enough. She said I had developed a usefulness model, always trying to earn my place by being needed. That's why I still flinched at the idea of being too much. We talked for an hour. When I walked out, my hands were numb, like something old and heavy had been pulled out of me. It was scary, but not lonely. A few days later, we had our second session, this time with Dad. We sat across from each other while the therapist guided us through the words we hadn't been able to say. He admitted he felt guilty. I admitted I'd been angry at him for staying silent. It wasn't blame. It was healing. Slow and painful, but real. After the session, we stopped at a small cafe near the clinic. He ordered me tea. I stared out the window and realized I wasn't waiting for anything bad to happen. He was just there. Not acting. Not pretending. Just there. And suddenly I saw it. We were really starting over. Not from scratch, but from honesty. 2 weeks into therapy, Mom resurfaced. Dad and I had just finished dinner. I was clearing the table when he, without looking up, said, "She's coming tomorrow to pick up her things." Something tightened inside me. I placed the plate in the sink, turned on the water, and washed the same spoon over and over again. Maybe 30 seconds. Maybe a minute. I didn't ask what time. He didn't say. We didn't talk about it again until the next day. I woke up earlier than usual. My chest felt heavy. I tried to keep myself busy all morning. Homework, cleaning, reorganizing my swimsuits. Even wiped the doorknobs for no reason. My heart wasn't racing out of fear, but from something else. Like two versions of me were fighting inside. The one who wanted to run and the one who was ready to stand her ground. They arrived around noon. Zach was with her. I saw them from the window. He was helping her carry boxes. She looked different. Not worse. Not better. Just unfamiliar. A face I recognized but didn't know anymore. I stayed in my room. I listened to the stairs creak, cabinet doors opening and closing. They moved fast. Barely spoke. Not to me. Not to each other. At one point, I heard the hallway door open and then her footsteps. She stopped in front of my room. For a few seconds. I held my breath. Then, she walked away. They left 20 minutes later. No sorry. No goodbye. And I didn't need either. No tears, no screaming. Just quiet. But not the suffocating kind. The even kind. The kind that lets you breathe. Dad came in that evening. How are you? I'm okay. He nodded. We both understood okay carried a lot. It held hurt, relief, exhaustion, and a strange sense of victory we didn't dare name out loud. I kept going to therapy. One session was about forgiveness. The therapist asked if I was ready for it. I sat in silence for a while. Then I said, I don't feel anger, but forgiveness isn't required. She smiled. And somehow that felt more right than any textbook answer. I started noticing changes. Tiny ones, maybe invisible to others, but huge for me. I didn't flinch at sudden noises anymore. I didn't brace myself when someone called my name from another room. I stopped apologizing, for existing, for speaking, for needing space. I no longer filled silence just to avoid it. It became peaceful. I started listening to music again. Let it play in the background while I studied. Or lay in bed with headphones, staring at the ceiling. No panic. No guilt about resting. One day after swimming practice, I saw a missed call from an unknown number. A minute later, a message came in. It's a shame things turned out like this, but what you did was cruel. No name, but I knew who it was. I deleted it, didn't respond. Because there was nothing left to explain. Not to them. Not to myself. I wasn't living in defense mode anymore. I was just living. Therapy didn't just shift my thoughts. It changed my voice. Literally. I started speaking more clearly, slower. I stopped shrinking my shoulders or lowering my eyes when I talked. Even with teachers, I dropped the habit of saying sorry before every question. It was like something inside me. Some switch that had always kept me in stay small mode. Finally flipped. In the best possible way. One day at practice, my coach casually called me the group leader. He said it like it was obvious. And something inside me paused. Leader? Me? I didn't know how to process that. That evening I told Dad, and he simply replied, not surprised. I've always seen it. I didn't argue. I just sat there with my cup of cocoa, staring at the steam rising, letting the words settle instead of pushing them away. But peace never lasts for long. That Saturday, we went to the mall to buy a new jacket. Mine was too small, and Dad had been insisting. We found a simple one. Nothing flashy, but I liked it. For the first time, I felt like I had the right to choose. Not because someone allowed me to, but because I could. As we stood by the exit, I saw my grandmother, Mom's mother. She was standing by the pharmacy, looking straight at us. One look and I could read everything in her eyes. Disapproval, resentment, judgment. She walked up to us. So, you think you're something now? She said instead of hello. You tear the family apart and now you're out shopping like nothing happened. Dad placed a hand gently on my shoulder, but I didn't move. I looked right at her. Calmly. Not with anger. Not with fear. Just directly. You didn't lose anything, she continued. My daughter did. You took everything from her. I said nothing. I didn't need to. She was looking for shame, for tears, for some flicker of regret. But I stood there silent. Because I didn't owe her anything. Not anymore. Dad said it was time to go. We walked away. I didn't look back. We didn't speak on the drive home. But the silence wasn't heavy. It felt like the quiet that follows a storm. Later that night, I wrote in my journal, I didn't shake today. And that's a win. At my next therapy session, I talked about what happened. The therapist asked if I felt like I'd changed. I thought for a moment. I hadn't changed. I was just beginning to remember who I was before they convinced me I was a mistake. It didn't sound dramatic. It wasn't some big revelation. It was simple. Precise. Like a truth that had finally been allowed to speak. From that day forward, I started reclaiming little pieces of myself. The ease in my smile, the right to be quiet, The choice to not justify every decision I made. It didn't feel like a breakthrough or a sudden awakening. It felt like climbing stairs. Slow, steady, quiet. With each step, I was more me. Just me. Without fear. Without shadows. I saw Zach again. But everything felt different this time. I didn't think I'd run into him again. After they left, Zach never reached out. No texts, no calls. It was like he disappeared. And honestly, I was fine with that. The silence between us felt way better than the constant yelling, sarcasm, and orders I used to get from him. I tried not to think about him at all. But one day, we crossed paths in the school hallway. He was walking with some guy from our class, laughing like life was perfect. I was walking toward them, carrying a folder full of papers. As soon as I saw him, it hit me in the stomach like a punch. My breath caught for a second, but I pulled myself together right away. He noticed me too. His steps slowed. At first, he looked right at me. Then, like he planned it, he turned his head, pretending I wasn't there. Old me would have looked away first. Pretended not to see him. Stayed quiet. But not now. I didn't smile. Didn't glare. I just looked straight at him. Then walked right past. I thought my heart would be pounding after, but it wasn't. I just kept walking, like it was nothing. And for me, that was a moment. A small one, but huge. I wasn't scared of him anymore. That night, I told my therapist about it. She asked, "What were you expecting from that encounter?" I had to think. Maybe I was scared I'd go back to feeling small. That I'd hear his voice in my head again, mocking me like always. But none of that happened. It all stayed in the past. The next day, he texted. I guess he still had my number. One message. "Want to talk?" I stared at the screen for a while. Not angry, not excited. Just thinking, why? What's he hoping for? I replied, "Don't think we have anything to say." He didn't answer. Not an hour later. Not the next day. I guess he thought I'd say yes. That I'd fall back into it. That I was still that same quiet, easy-to-control girl. But I'm not, and he knew it. My dad saw the message by accident. I'd left my phone on the table and he glanced at the screen. He didn't say anything at first, but later at dinner, he asked quietly, "You two talking again?" I shook my head. "Number?" He texted. I replied, "That's it." He nodded. I could tell he was trying to stay calm, but I saw the tension anyway. Not because he was scared, but because he didn't know what to expect either. I haven't seen Zach since. He started walking different routes at school. Maybe he feels awkward. Maybe guilty. Though I doubt he's the type to feel real remorse. More likely, he realized his usual tricks don't work on me anymore. I wasn't out for revenge. I wasn't angry. But I wasn't going back either. All I wanted was peace. The honest kind. No pretending. No games. It was enough for me to know I could face him and not break. That felt like my final test. And I passed it. A few months have passed. Everything got quieter. Both around me and inside. I can't say it all ended well. This wasn't some victory or a final scene with applause. But I didn't need good. I needed real. I stopped waiting for a movie ending. My mom's not going to show up full of regret. My brother won't apologize. No one's going to send a long letter saying how wrong they were. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Not because I don't care. Just, it's over. Like a lemon that's been squeezed dry. Like a door I no longer feel the need to open. I'm learning to live differently now. No more anxious what-ifs. No more trying to be the easy one. No more holding my breath when I speak. Dad's still here. We didn't become the perfect team. Sometimes we miss each other emotionally. Sometimes we say too little. But in that silence, there's no tension. It's not fear anymore. It's trust. A quiet kind. Not spoken out loud, but felt. Just, I'm here if you need me. The other day, he offered to buy me a bike. Not for a birthday. Not as a reward. Just because he saw me looking at one in a shop window. I didn't ask. He just noticed. And that meant something. He sees me now. Really sees me. I still go to therapy. Not as often, but I keep going. Some things don't leave right away. Some things still sting, but they don't crush me anymore. It's more like a scar. It's there, but I can breathe. Sometimes I dream about Mom. She's not angry, not warm either, just the way I remember her. I wake up and I don't cry. I don't even feel sad. I just remember and let it go. I didn't become a new person. I didn't reinvent myself. I just took back what I'd been giving away for too long. My voice, my boundaries, the right to exist on my own terms. School's almost over. I don't know exactly what comes next. But now I have space to figure it out. I don't panic about it. I don't feel pressured. I just know that whatever happens, life won't be perfect, but it'll be mine. When I look in the mirror now, I don't search for approval. I just see me, as I am. And for the first time in all this time, that feels like enough.